a survivor of residential.
So, awesome. Fortunately, we have 3 special guests with us this morning who are going to share their stories of personal experiences as well as work that they continue to do in our community and in communities surrounding Prince Albert with people who have had experiences with residential schools. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce to you, we have Ovid Campbell here, we have Gloria Ledoux, and Lorraine Van Dale. And so each of them are going to share their stories and experiences with you guys. And at any point in time, if you have questions, please make a mental note. And remember at the end, then you can tweet them, okay? And we'll ask them our questions. So we will begin with Gloria Ledoux.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? Or do I have to hold this up? We're fine. Hi, once more, good morning. I'm going to start out by saying a little prayer. I find that it encourages me and it helps me out. We do this before special events so that it's a way of preparing to come and do a presentation. And we all need some sort of spirituality, whatever you believe in. If it's reading something positive on your cell phones, then that's what you do. But for myself, I'd like to start out with just a short prayer in my own language, and you can help me out by doing whatever you believe in on your own. Nanaskum minu pagakioge uskaya kapin putake kawi ni kiwe ektamina pinwasena kun misknamo ektamina kumagan na kitang ko nuatun meo eksumis wichen notska iska eksumis biga kismea. So I ask for good thoughts for today, and that whatever I tell you, you will take something positive home with you. You would have gained some knowledge about what happened to us. And I would also like to thank your leadership for taking the initiative to invite us here today. I'm the oldest daughter in a family of 15. There was 15 of us kids. And a lot of you would have thought we grew up in poverty. But you know what? We didn't. Because we lived off the land. We didn't have a corner store to run to or to go and pick up a Slurpee. We only went to town maybe once every 2 weeks for groceries. And the rest of the time, like I said, we lived off the land. That's how I grew up. But having said that, we only had grades 1 to 8 on our reserve in Ataka Coops, or Sandy Lake as it was called back then. And so after grade 8, we had to leave the reserve to attend school, high school. And my mom was very traditional. She believed strongly in education, in educating her children at home, both at home, and sending us off to school. What happened was my dad got into a bad accident while he shot himself in the leg. He tripped when he was on a trap line, and he shot his leg. So he spent about 8 months at the university hospital, and Mom had to go on welfare. And that was a very trying time for her because she wasn't used to that. She was used to having a breadwinner, somebody to bring the food home for her. So all of a sudden she was on her own, no money, no skills. So she said, education is the answer. So that was her goal for us, for her children. And when I say, Mom was a very traditional woman. We did family things together. She made sure that we were all at the table together, and it was family time. We could not go to our meals in a bad mood, crying or angry. We had to be in a good mood to come to the table to eat, and we all ate together, and we ate what was put before us. We couldn't ask for chips, we couldn't ask for fries, and everything that's available to you people today. We didn't have that. But Mom was the type of person that it was family time for us, and we would all eat together. We'd all leave together for school. And we had bullies at that time too. So we traveled in groups. We walked to school, which was about maybe a mile and a half. There was no buses to pick us up. We had to walk. And we had certain times. We had 20 minutes to get home after school. Otherwise, we were in trouble. We were in penance. And in the evenings, again, was family time. And I'm saying this because it's so important to have family time. I don't know, there's a few families probably out there that do have family times. After supper, Dad would load us up in a truck and he'd drive us out to the fields and show us where the berry patches were, where we could go and pick berries. Or else, if it wasn't berry season, then he'd take us and we'd have a ball game. And we'd do something as a family every evening. And that was when he was home. He was away a lot. And then another thing we did was Mom would have prayer time in the evenings where she would read the Bible to us. I never understood much about what she was reading, but she would read the Bible to us, and we would sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and say a prayer, Now I lay me down to sleep. And again, she put us in a positive mood. And I didn't realize half the time why she did the things she did in a certain way. I had to do a lot of cooking. She was teaching me to cook, and at the same time, when she would be angry or sick, she would have me cooking, my sister and I, because she said, if you're angry, then you're transferring that negative energy into that food you're serving. And she always, but she never said that. She never told me that. So my mom was angry a lot. No, I'm just saying. But yeah, she did that. And like I said, the family time, that's so important. Where do I go visiting today? Where do I find friends to go visit in the evenings? They're all on the bingo, to the casino. And that's where I go and see them just about every night. Anyway, that's, back then, there was nothing like that. But we did have family days. The community would have sports days on Sundays, and that's, and another thing Mom did, that was a special day. She put that aside. Our food would be cooking, and we would go to church. And we'd come home, it was always roast beef, mashed potatoes, peas and corn. And then all us kids would get to have tea with cream and sugar. And that was a special treat. So she would make it a special day set aside for church. And that's, again, that was important. I didn't know that back then. But she would always prepare us for the day. And when we come home from school, we used to have a bucket of water pail, with a little dipper. Now they're antique, so little dippers. But as we came home from school, she made us all drink a dipper full of water. All of us. I didn't know back then that was really, you're dehydrated. We didn't know that. And the other thing she encouraged us to do was to eat rosebuds. One rosebud is equivalent to what, 9 oranges of vitamin C? We didn't know that either, but she encouraged us. She encouraged us to pick berries along the way. And I said and then on the weekends, she would make us go and pick, we had 5-pound lard pails and 3-pound lard pails. And we'd have to go and pick a pail full of berries before we could go swimming. And we did a lot of picking and a lot of fast picking, a lot of leaves too. But we had to clean our berries when we got home too, so we learned to pick. And again, when you're picking berries out there all by yourself, it's a time to meditate. It's a time to think about good things, and sometimes not so bad things. But it was therapeutic in that you were thinking as you were picking these berries, whether you're picking fast or whatever. But it was a time to meditate. It was a time to think about the good time you were going to have at school or whatever. So when I was in grade 8, I had to leave home. And like I said, I was the oldest girl in a family of 15. We had lost my older brother. He died when he was 13 years old with complications from ruptured appendix, because we didn't have doctors handy, and it was too late by the time they got him to the doctor. That was my first really trauma in my life, because my brother was my friend. He was my best friend. He was the one that taught me so much. He took me to school on my first day, and he introduced me to one of the older girls. He said, "This is my sister. Her name is Gloria. This is her first day of school. Can you look out for her and go play with the boys?" That's the way he was. That's the kind of responsibility we were taught at home. This was my foundation. And I thought he was so smart, because we had to walk, like I said, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles in the summer around the lake. And there was so many roads to get there, so many big trees, wow, this long. And I thought they were really big trees, but anyway, I thought he was the smartest guy in the whole world. And that first day of school, Mom again made that a special day for us. She would buy us a brand new outfit, shoes, socks, dress for myself, braid my hair into French braids. And those were our school clothes. After school, we had to go into our after-school clothes, or our raggy clothes. And this is, like I said, it was a schedule back then. So when I went to school here, what we call All Saints, to the residential school here, and I was 15 when I first came to high school. All new experience for me. And PACI, I thought was even bigger than this place. But I was not used to it. And you kind of get lost. And it was my first time in a city. It was my first time away from home. And guess what? I started smoking. I started looking at boys. Wow, were they ever cuties out there? And there was all these little kids. And I didn't have time for them. Who had time when I had all these boys to look at, all these new things out there. Anyway, I came to PACI, Prince Albert Collegiate Institute. I don't know if it's still called that. That's where I came to school for grade 9. And I always tell people, I went right through high school, in the front door and out the back. Because when I went home for Christmas, I was really feeling lost, really lost. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I had failed, I don't remember, probably my maths. I failed my maths. And so when we came back after Christmas in January, that's what I did. I came in the front door and out the back. And I went home. I found my way back home. And my roommate's father, which I credit this time to furthering my education, came out to the reserve and picked me up. He said, remember, there's people out there to help you. You're not alone. You might feel alone. He said, but there's always somebody there to help you. And that always stuck with me too. So I came back. I came back to school. Now I had to do detention, a half hour for every period I missed. But it was just that one afternoon. That's what I had to do, detention for that. So I had 4 days of detention. And I remember this because Mr. Spencer, he was later to be the mayor, he was one of my teachers. And Friday night came along and he said to us, you know what, he said, I wish you guys would quit getting into trouble. He said, you think I like being here, babysitting you? None of us wanted to be there, but like I said, it was, and I remember, and then he was a mayor after that, and I thought these are the kind of people that played a role in my life when I was growing up. And when I talk about residential school, and when I said, I was there, I experienced residential school firsthand, but I know all this thing was happening, the sexual abuse, physical, mental, spiritual, it was all happening there. I didn't see it. And you know, being the oldest in a family of 15, I was a babysitter. All my life I babysat. I used to think, when I get out of here, I'm never getting married, I'm never going to have kids. No one. So I didn't have time. And like I said, I was busy in my new surroundings. My first boyfriend, my first smoke. And I didn't have time to be a big sister to those little kids. I saw what they ate. I knew they only had one piece of bread, a dry piece of bread by the time, it might have been, I don't know how many little kids, probably 6 years old and up. And I saw some of them crying, but like I said, I couldn't be bothered. But I could have been. I missed that opportunity to help someone, to help one of those little kids that were suffering. But I didn't see the suffering either. That was well hidden. And anyway, so grade 10 and 11, I went to Outlook to a white boarding school. And because there was no room here. My experience in that white boarding school, again, was positive. We lived, slept, ate meals with our dominant society, white people, and there was only 2 brown faces in that school, the very first ones that ever went to school there. And we didn't start school till the end of October, but we went to school on Saturdays for that month that we missed, and then we wouldn't start till noon on Mondays. But everything again was a schedule. You had 15 minutes to have a bath. You had you had to write your name when you wanted to wash your clothes. And we always had activities. Well, I was already used to that. And we always had intramural sports. So we were all in houses. And they had stuff going for us all the time. So that we had to report for the meals. We had to be in dresses. And it was a mixed school. The boys stayed in one part of the dorm and we were in another building. But it was, but like I said, I had the opportunity to go back and meet 50 years later. That's how old I am. I went to my 50-year reunion and they had a circle. And there were doctors, lawyers, nurses, people with all kinds of professions, educated, and we talked about where we were at, what we were doing. And when it came my turn, I told them, thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you in this room. I said, you made me what I am today. You, I said, laid the foundation of what I went out into that world, that big world out there. I said, I've never once heard a racial discrimination against myself as an Indian person. In fact, I was a novelty there because a lot of them had never seen Indians, an Indian person. My skin, I said, is a little darker than yours. I said, but what I found out was I'm no different. I'm equal. I'm equal here. I cried with you. I ate with you. I was lonesome with you. I said, I was no different. I was better in some things than you were, and you were better in some things than I was. But when I came out of here, I was not intimidated by mainstream society or our dominant society. That's what they gave me. And they were so impressed. All of them came and shook hands with me and thanked me for what I said. But they were just being themselves. You know, it didn't cross their minds, old Indians. Because I remember one time, we used to have to walk from PCI to the residence park. We'd walk to school, and at noon we'd run home and have lunch and then run back to school, and then we'd walk home. Anyway, I always set goals in my lifetime, and my goal here, when I came back for grade 12, back to All Saints, now we were privileged. Because I was a grade 12 student, I got priority. They made room for me so I could come back here. We ate with the staff, and which were probably 3-course meals. And I saw, like I said, what the kids ate, the small kids. I saw what they ate, but I didn't know. I still didn't know what they were going through. It never impacted on me that they were torn away from their homes, that they never had that opportunity that I had growing up. I was not to learn that till I came to school, or till I started working as a resolution health support worker for the residential school. Then I not only heard the horrors of what they went through, but I experienced it through them. I know the terrible things that happened to them, and it used to break my heart listening to them in tears talking about those residential school experiences. That's when I knew how I had grown up, laid the foundation of who I am today, what I present to people out there. When half of the time these kids never had that opportunity. They grew up confused, mixed up, and they carried that in their hearts. How many years? How many years? And then they were expecting to dredge that back up and share. And the more abuse you got, the more money you got. You think that dollar sign fixed everything? No. For some, it had to be the worst experience, even worse than when it was actually happening, because they had to relive that abuse that they suffered. I could tell you stories, their stories, but it's not mine to tell. And it was told in confidentiality, but it used to hurt. I had bad days. I would come home I thought, you know what? I was there. I was there. And I never did anything about it. I never helped. Somehow, I might have helped, but no, I didn't know any of these things was going on. I didn't have a clue. And some of these things that happened to them killed them. They went out there to their communities, and they drank to forget. And imagine the parents back home. I lost my 16-year-old son, and I'm still living with that, day after day. I think about my son, what he might have been doing, that I might have had grandchildren, but I'll never see that again. I see my brothers and sisters, I see their pain, I feel their pain, because their kids are messed up with drugs, with smoking, alcoholics. Because, like I said, I drank because my peers drank. I smoked because we all smoked. All the kids smoked. So I smoked. And then somehow I know in my heart they have to go through that to know. But, like I said, Mom used to say, I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know what I did wrong. She said, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any of these things, and all my kids are drunks. That's what she said. And I said, Mom, it's not your fault. We have our own choices. All of us, we made those choices. I said, but she was the role model that she was. She had, but she couldn't understand why we didn't follow in her footsteps. And you know what? These are the choices that we make for ourselves. We think we're cool. We think we're this and that. But, you know, I had a good feeling when I had a beer. I thought I was stepping really high. And I could laugh. But that laughter didn't last very long. You should have seen me about 4 years into drinking. Nobody wanted to come near me because I would tell them off. I was a doctor, a lawyer, a singer, name it. And I was the biggest counselor here. And people started disappearing because I was so miserable drinking. I was a miserable drunk. But, you know, I didn't see myself as that way. I just, there was a lot of times I just wanted to crawl under the bed and never come out after I'd been on a drunk. But I'm lucky again that I never did anything terrible. But I could have done a lot of things on a drunk and I didn't. But having said that, it's like I said, the choices we make, the goals we set ourselves. Like I said, our way is to prepare. My mom would have gone to a ceremony. She would have offered something. She would have made an offering so that whatever she went out there to do that day or to say in this auditorium today, that things would go right, that she would say the right things, not to offend anybody, that was so important. And if you listen to elders, that's what they say. I don't mean to offend anybody by what I'm saying. I'm just trying to pass a message along or a teaching. And that's our way of life. That's how we were taught at home, is to prepare. Like I wouldn't go to church in a bikini, I'd be dressed appropriately. Those kind of things. Like our ceremonies, there's protocols for all our ceremonies. And there's a great deal of preparation to go into that, into those ceremonies. And what we put in there is what we get back. I'm going to talk about 3 things. One is Indian giving. You know, how many of you here have heard of Indian giver? Anybody? You know what Indian giver is? I'll meet her on the street and she's sort of something I have. Could be a pen. So I'll give her my pen. I'll give her my pen. But I don't want that pen back. I've given it to her as a gift. So she can use it. I don't want it back. Because somewhere down the line, I know that if one of my kids or somebody in my family needs something, they're going to know to help out that person. That's not because we want it back. And in our ceremonies, we have giveaways. And I've heard people say, well, how come you're giving all that stuff there? They live in poverty, they're poor, and yet they're right there giving out all this stuff. Well, that's said with a lot of prayer. Those things they're giving away, they know somewhere down the line they're asking for something and they're going to get it back tenfold. That's what Indian giver is to us, as Indian people. The next one I'm going to talk about is Indian time. Again, how many here have heard of Indian time? Always late, 1 hour. Again, what is Indian time to Indian people? Indian time is, we look at the sun, it's dinner time, okay, so we all eat. But it was more than that. It was more than just looking at your watch. It was all about time to pick berries, because we had to preserve them for the winter months. There was a time to hunt, again, to preserve, always for survival, always for the future. And that's our Indian time. Because if you were late for berry picking season, you had to go without for the whole year. That's Indian time. The last one I'm going to talk about is Indian love. How many of you have heard of Indian love? Thank you. Indian love. We're taught from the time of conception with mothers about our unconditional love. Indian love today is construed as beating up your wife. And my grandfather used to say, the Creator did not give more strength to the man so he could knock his wife around. They are the givers of life. They're the ones that bring life into this world. Therefore, we need to look after them. We need to nurture them. And Indian love is not knocking them around, beating them up. I think Thank you for listening to me. And like I said, I hope you take one good thing with you when you leave today. Thank you. can you hear me? Okay. I work with a residential school file, and I do empowerment workshops for anybody, more so with my people, because in order for us to move forward, we have to be empowered. And I like to make it a little interactive and exciting in doing this work. And I'm going to tell you a joke. You don't have to laugh if you don't want to, but it kind of breaks the ice. And we have truth and reconciliation with our residential school because in order to deal with something, you have to speak the truth. And everybody has to know the truth. Because the bottom line is we're all human beings and we have to live together. And I read this from the Reader's Digest. There was this man walking down the street and he saw a sign that said, "Talking dog for sale," tweaked his interest. So he went to the inside and there was nobody in the front. And he went to the back and there was a dog there. And it said "Talking dog" and a dog was there. And he asked the dog, "So you're the talking dog?" And the dog says, "As a matter of fact, I am." And so he says, "Tell me about yourself." And the dog says, "Well," he says, "I was born here, I traveled all over the country here, I went overseas, I was in Vietnam, and when I was over there, I met my partner, I had a couple of puppies, and I moved back." And so he said, "Oh, this is exciting." So he went to the front, the man was back, and he said, "This dog, he can talk." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But you want $10 for him?" And he said, "Yeah. You know he can talk, but you know he doesn't know how to tell the truth." And into that, I thought that was pretty good. And into that, a coach of mine told me, Lorraine, he says, you need to tell the truth at a level you never told before, because it's by telling the truth you're able to create something different in your life. Everybody has heard about residential school. And I grew up on reserve, we were so bushed, I'll say. When we were small, they say white people in Cree, when we are son, we run and hide under the bed because we had no interaction with the outside community. But in the process of time, that was then. So how did I move from under the bed to up here? Because somewhere along the line, I was empowered and I chose to tell the truth and take responsibility in my life. And I can do this work that I do with Aboriginal people, non-Aboriginal people. I can do it at an international level and empower people because it's not something I'm doing, it's something I am. I was doing a national workshop, it was for leaders, and this is so important because I want to take it to the non-Native community also. It's about responsibility. And it's about making a shift in your life. I was doing this workshop and it was leadership, and I was a bit nervous. It was about residential school, and they had went to residential school. How many of you here have heard about the horror of residential school? Do some people feel guilty about it? They don't know what to say. And some people play the victim. And it's time to quit that and to move forward. So, when did residential school happen? In terms of time. Past, present, or future? Past, thank you. So this is the past. If you don't deal with the past, where does it show up? In the present, right now. And if you don't deal with it now, it's going to show up in the future. See, this is very important to learn because you can't create something if you're living in the past. So how it looks is, it happened in the past. If you don't deal with it, it's in the present. And if you don't deal with it, there it's in the future. I, for one, am not going to play a little Indian or a victim because I'm not. And this is where it's so important to make a shift and empower yourself because you weren't created to be a victim. You were called to do something great in your life. As walking in here, I saw by Gandhi, it said, "Be the change you want to see." What a powerful statement. So I'm doing this workshop, And there's this nice, sweet little lady, tiny, and everybody loved and respected her. Then one day we were in a circle doing workshop, and my facilitator was here, and she's kind of an aggressive presenter, and she stands like this. And that little lady, all of a sudden, it looked like she turned into the Incredible Hulk. She kind of turned green, and she was just like, "You're just like residential school," she said. And we all looked at her. This is our favorite little lady. What happened to her, right? And there was a grand chief from the territory sitting not far from there. She said, "What do you think? Don't you remind you of residential school?" And we said, "Yeah." And we looked bossy and controlling in front, right? And our presenter kept escalating with them, and we lost the room. Because everybody thought we were like residential school, and we were bossy, and we were up here, and everybody was, all of a sudden, so the man who brought us up there, he got up and he said, "Okay, let's do something here." And they told him, "You sit down." He said, "You're from our community, you're on their side." All of a sudden, there's sides. The worst nightmare, you lose the room, it's leadership, and they're all on one, and you're on this side. So what do you do to dismantle that? So I pray all the time when I do this work, because it's spiritual work. I thought, and I was trying to get up there, my co-facilitator kept doing this, but she was bringing the room just out of control, because how many of you know when somebody is angry, you can't talk to them? Yeah. Or when there's a power struggle between parents and children, and I'm right, you're wrong, and it just goes out of control. So that's how the room was. So I got up and I asked that little lady, I said, "What's happening?" She says, "What do you mean what's happening? You know what's happening?" And I thought, "No." I said, "What's happening? Where are you?" She says, "What do you mean, where are you? I'm right here. You can see me." "No." I said, "Where are you?" And she said, and she looked at me, I said, "Are you back in residential school?" And she was kind of looking at me, and she was quiet. And everybody got quiet. She said, "Yes." She said, "I went back to residential school." So I got this grand chief, I said, "Where did you go?" And he said, "You know, I went back to residential school too." "Where did all of you go?" Everybody went back to residential school. That's how quickly we can get triggered into the past, act out from there, and take something somewhere else. So that day we regrounded the room. How many of you have little brothers and sisters or children are really cute and just have a lot of promise in life? I have a nephew that looks like a really cute little guy, and he's just chubby. What do you want your children? What do you want to give your children? Do you want to give them your stuff, or do you want to empower them? Because you know, this residential school, Prince Albert is like an urban reserve. We have to start a different conversation. We have to let things go. So if you don't deal with residential school, here it is in the past. If you don't deal with it, where does it show up? In the present. And if you don't deal with it, it shows up in the future. It doesn't have to be residential school. It could be anything in your life. I always hear psychologists say, "Oh, it was part of his childhood and that is the way it is." No. BS, it's not. You're created powerful and you have choices. And you choose to do if you're going to do something great or you're going to be a victim. So what do you want to give your children? What do you want to give to the next generation? Do you want to be known as somebody that made a change? Or are you going to be known as somebody that I was talking, yeah, a lot of things happened in residential school. It made me cry. It made me show me who I was. But I chose not to live there. I chose to create something different and give something to the next generation. My grandfather was a hereditary chief, and his name was a Tatapu. And he's always quoted as saying this. He says, "Let's not think of ourselves, but let's think of the next generation, what we're going to give our children. So with me, that's what I want to present to you with residential school. That we could move powerful, work together, and leave the past there and let it go and create a better future for Prince Albert and Carleton. With that, I think my 10 minutes are up.
How much time? Like 30 seconds. So thanks everyone for coming. There's a bell. As you leave, please think about what they said. If you do have a question, please tweet Carleton Ask an Elder, and we will get your questions answered. Thanks so much.